He never raised his voice. Never asked for help. He just kept showing up. Until one day he didn't. And that's when everyone suddenly remembered all the moments they chose not to see. Ethan Cole had a way of making himself invisible without ever meaning to. He was the kind of man people described as solid, dependable, the kind who nodded instead of argued, who listened more than he spoke. If someone asked how he was doing, he always smiled first. The smile came before the answer like a reflex. "I'm good," he'd say. Always good. He lived alone in a small second-floor apartment that smelled faintly of old books and black coffee. Every morning, he woke up before the alarm, stared at the ceiling for a few seconds, and took a breath that felt heavier than the one before. Then he got up anyway. He always got up. At work, Ethan was early. He was always early. He sat at his desk while the building was still quiet, lights half dim, typing reports no one ever praised him for but everyone depended on. When the others arrived, they'd toss him quick greetings. "Morning, Ethan." "Hey, how's it going?" "Good." That was the whole exchange day after day. Maya worked 2 desks over. She noticed things. She noticed the dark circles under his eyes growing deeper, the way he flinched when his phone buzzed, the lunches he didn't eat. She noticed how he stayed late even when his work was done, just sitting there, staring at the screen like it was holding him together. Once she leaned over and asked softly, "You okay?" Ethan looked surprised, like the question had caught him off guard. Then the smile came. "Yeah, just tired." Maya nodded. She told herself that was normal. Everyone was tired. Jonah, their manager, liked Ethan because Ethan never complained. When deadlines were impossible, Ethan didn't argue. When workloads doubled, Ethan didn't protest. Jonah told people, "I wish everyone had Ethan's attitude." Ethan overheard that once. It didn't feel like praise. Felt like a weight. At night the apartment was too quiet. Ethan would sit on the edge of his bed with his shoes still on, staring at the wall where a small crack ran from the corner of the window down toward the floor. He traced it with his eyes like it was a path he might one day follow out. He thought about calling someone. He always did. He'd pick up his phone, scroll through contacts, then lock the screen again. What would he even say? "I'm not okay. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I need help." The words felt dramatic, heavy, like they didn't belong to him. Other people had real problems. He just needed to push through. He always pushed through. On Sundays, he visited Mrs. Alvarez downstairs. She was old and sharp-tongued and insisted he take leftovers every time. "You're too thin," she said, pressing a container into his hands. "I eat," Ethan lied gently. She watched him with knowing eyes. "You carry sadness like a backpack you forgot how to take off." Ethan laughed, but his throat tightened. "You're imagining things." "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe you think being quiet makes you invisible." He didn't answer that. Weeks blurred together. Ethan started waking up already exhausted, like sleep had stopped working. His chest felt tight sometimes, a dull pressure he ignored. He told himself it was stress. Everything was stress. One evening, Maya passed his desk as she was leaving. Ethan was still there, staring at nothing. "You don't have to stay," she said. He blinked. "I know." She hesitated, then left anyway. She had dinner plans. She told herself he'd be fine. The night before it happened, Ethan sat on his bed and finally cried. Quietly. The kind of crying that doesn't make noise but leaves your face aching. He pressed his fist to his mouth so no one would hear, even though no one was there. "I'm tired," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm so tired." The next morning, Ethan didn't show up to work. First, no one noticed. The empty desk felt wrong once someone finally saw it. Maya noticed first. It was almost noon. Ethan had never been late. Not once. "Did Ethan call in?" she asked Jonah. Jonah frowned and checked his phone. "No. Probably just running behind." But an hour passed. Then another. Maya's chest felt tight in a way she couldn't explain. She sent Ethan a message. "Hey, everything okay?" No reply. By mid-afternoon, The office buzzed with quiet concern. Jonah tried calling. Straight to voicemail. "Ethan, it's Jonah. Just checking in. Call me back." He didn't. When they called the building manager listed in Ethan's emergency contact file, it felt sudden, serious in a way no one was ready for. The manager said Ethan hadn't been seen leaving that morning. Maya's hands shook as she grabbed her coat. "I'm going over there." The apartment door was unlocked. That detail stayed with her forever. The place was neat, almost painfully so. Shoes lined up. Dishes clean. On the small kitchen table sat an unopened container of Mrs. Alvarez's food. Next to it, Ethan's phone. He was on the bedroom floor. There was no blood. No chaos. Just Ethan lying still, like he'd finally decided to rest. The paramedics said it was his heart. Stress. Exhaustion. A body pushed too far without relief. They used calm voices, professional words. None of them softened the truth. Too late. Maya stood in the hallway while they worked, her mind screaming backward through every moment she'd noticed something was wrong and done nothing with it. She remembered the dark circles, the uneaten lunches, the way he'd looked surprised when she asked if he was okay, like no one ever had. At the office, the mood shifted from confusion to shock to guilt. Jonah shut himself in his office, staring at the wall. "He never said anything," he muttered. If he'd said something. But that wasn't true. Ethan had said things. Just not with words. Mrs. Alvarez cried openly when they told her. She clutched her chest and shook her head. "He was drowning quietly," she said. And everyone thought silence meant strength. The funeral was small. Ethan didn't have much family. The co-workers filled the rows, sitting stiffly, listening to stories that made their throats burn. They learned things they'd never known. That Ethan loved drawing and used to sketch at night. That he'd once wanted to be a teacher. That he gave money to a local shelter anonymously every month. Maya spoke last. Her voice trembled. "He was kind," she said. "He was always there. And I keep thinking, I don't remember the last time I really showed up for him." The room was silent except for quiet crying. Afterward, life tried to move on, but it couldn't do it cleanly. Ethan's desk stayed empty for weeks. No one wanted to take it. Jonah started asking people how they were doing and waiting for the answer. Really waiting. Maya started checking in twice, sometimes 3 times, when someone said they were fine. And sometimes, late at night, she replayed the moment she'd walked past Ethan's desk and gone to dinner instead. She wished she had stayed. Months passed. But Ethan's absence stayed heavy, like a shadow that didn't fade. His apartment was emptied quietly. The crack in the wall remained. Mrs. Alvarez kept expecting to hear his steps on the stairs. She left his door light on for weeks before the manager finally turned it off. Maya began volunteering at the shelter Ethan had donated to. She didn't tell anyone why. It felt like something she owed him, even though she knew it didn't balance anything. Sometimes she imagined what might have happened if just one thing had been different. If Jonah had eased the workload. If she'd pushed a little harder. If Ethan had believed he was allowed to need help. But regrets don't move backward. They just sit with you. On the anniversary of his death, Maya visited the cemetery alone. She stood in front of the simple stone with his name carved into it and felt the familiar ache rise in her chest. "I see it now," she whispered. "All of it." She talked to him like he could hear her. About the changes. About the conversations people were finally having. About how his silence had taught them something they should have learned sooner. "I wish you'd known," she said, tears slipping down her face. "That you mattered even when you weren't useful. Even when you were tired." The wind moved through the trees softly, like a breath. Ethan Cole became a quiet lesson passed between people who'd known him. A reminder that the strongest-looking ones are sometimes the closest to breaking. That asking, "Are you okay?" only matters if you're willing to listen to the real answer. No one helped him when he needed it most. And that truth stayed with them long after it was too late.